All right, let's start with the MTN numbers. So as the CEO reported, very decent numbers coming out of Nigeria, data revenue up 40%, growth in ARPUs, the growth in subscriber numbers, reflecting a very decent business. Now, we're expecting that listing later on this year, certainly in the first half of the year. Your perspective on what that could mean for the market, because the market, I think, is still lacking something to get it going this year.
Oh, yeah, no. Listing of MTN on the Nigerian Stock Exchange is going to be huge. And it's going to be huge, literally and figuratively. It's going to be a very large listing.
Sure.
So it'll probably be, I think it'll be the top three, one of the top three listings on the board.
Absolutely.
Behind Dangote and Seplat. And then it's also huge in that it really opens up the space for how you can start to price those assets, because it'll be the first one in. And if it does really well, you can see people like Airtel, a group that is struggling to find its feet when it comes to financing. They can now see that as it might be a valuable way for them to take some cash out of the country. And then for the likes of Glo and who knows what happens with 9Mobile, but you now have a game plan or a path for them to go and start to raise capital directly from. But
Dari, do you think that the listing will be that driver for the market moving forward this year?
Yes, I think so. Like from what he said, I mean, it's going to set a precedence for other players in that space that can also look at the capital market as an opportunity. But more than that, for now, we've not had so much catalysts in the market. So we've had the same names year in, year out. And beyond that, when it also comes to the election issues, market is generally slow and sluggish. So once you have this kind of name coming on board, it's going to trigger a lot of activity and interest, actually. Over
the last 24 hours, we've seen quite a few results come out. So maybe we should just get your perspective on some of those. GTB, of course, reported, and Stanbic, I think, also reported. I think, to me, that was really the big one that caught my attention. We always talk about Stanbic as being much more than a bank. I mean, it's the asset management business, it's the pension business, and so forth. Let me get to your perspective, Dari, on Stanbic's performance and how this impacts your rating of the stock.
I'm yet to do a thorough analysis on the numbers, but in terms of the valuation, in terms of our rating, all of that, of course, is under review. But what I would, just like you rightly said, it's more than a bank, so it has a lot of other businesses, of course, still in the financial services, the pension business, and so on, that is driving activities and, of course, helping it to deliver strong numbers. You don't see so much of that in other banks like GTB, even though the numbers were strong and decent, but you don't have as much contribution. GTB's numbers this year, I mean, that's for 2018, was largely helped by non-interest income. That's a income from fees and commission, trading, and so on. So that's actually that was the driver for GTB, for instance, when you look at the two of them side by side.
Right, but it is an earnings beat. GTB, it's the best among equals. I think that's what people tend to call it. So your view on the upside that we can see, because I can see some analysts suggesting that these numbers beat their expectations. Maybe there'll be a re-rating of the stock. What are your thoughts on GTB?
Well, at the end of the day, until somebody comes around to really dethrone GTB, they will continue to set that. They'll continue to set the bar to which everybody has to jump. So can you wake up any day to wake up and say GTB is overpriced? It's going to take a while. GTB has historically traded about a 30% premium to the next best bank, which is Zenith, and if you look at the premium they chase to the kind of the rest of them, it's a lot wider. So the question now is, have the other banks done enough to catch up to GTB? So that's the first thing we have to say.
But we describe GTB's performance as an efficiency premium, a transparency premium. I mean, that premium that you spoke of, how will you describe it?
But it's both. Number one, and the biggest one, is the transparency premium. People trust what they see in GTB. So international investors, if they have to choose a bank in Nigeria, they will choose GTB before they open up the books to check what are the opportunities over. So that marginal investor, when it comes to Nigerian banks, will go to GTB before everybody else because they want to see exactly what's going on. But that being said, that marginal investor should now start to look at a bank like Stanbic. Stanbic is a bank that the valuation is significantly less than the value of its parts. If you spin out the pension business and strip out the bank and make those two efficient, the value in that enterprise is significantly greater. What does concern me is you take a look at what UBA did. UBA stripped out all its businesses and let people give people shares in all these businesses so we can see the real value. My problem now is Standard Bank International continues to hold 80+% of something like the pension business, which has been folded in. Number one, I think it's important for people like the SEC to go and check and see how are they acquiring that? Are they continuing to acquire more and more of those shares? Because at the end of the day, they can do this, acquire 100% of that, then spin it out on the back end, which means anybody that has traded Stanbic over the last couple of years has really taken a beating. So I would like to see that business. It's way too big to be hidden in there. Spin it out, give people shares. Let's value all these things appropriately.
Right. Well, if I can come back to GTB very briefly, your thoughts on the growth potential moving forward, because it is still outperforming, but I think that performance seems to be slowing in terms of the year-on-year growth. How do you see this year panning out for GT Bank?
I think this year will still be a good year for GTB. Like if you look at the income drivers, you have the mobile money platform, for instance, growing by about 24% thereabout, and that is where you have low capex, high margins, because you don't really need it's technology driven, so you don't have to deploy much of physical infrastructure for that. When you look at other other income from trading of forex, so they have a lot of income coming from those spaces. And of course, the reason why the net interest income did not grow as much was because of the reduction in the loan book. So once they're able to do that this year, then we are able to see that upsurge.
You think the loan book is likely to grow this year?
Not significantly, but I expect to see some moderate growth in that space as well.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your perspective. And speaking to Winston Osuchukwu, co-founder of Trans-Sahara Incorporated, and of course, Fajimolu, Chief Research Officer at Blue Vertex. After the